Did you know that Operation Valkyrie was not the only attempt to take down Hitler? Before and after that plot, there were other men willing to risk everything to stop the German dictator, and several were very close to succeeding. Stay tuned to discover some of the lesser-known assassination attempts against Hitler and how fate seemed to protect him each time. We have all heard of Operation Valkyrie, that famous attempt by the German military to eliminate Hitler in 1944. However, that was just one of several attempts over the years. From soldiers carrying bombs to ordinary citizens risking their lives, there were several carefully planned attempts to end his reign. Today I will tell you about some of those other plans that almost changed history and what happened in each of them. Maurice Bavaud, the Swiss sniper, 1938. Our first attempt takes us to 1938, when a young Swiss man named Maurice Bavaud traveled to Germany to try to assassinate Hitler. On October 9th, Maurice traveled from Brittany to Baden-Baden, then to Basel, where he bought a 6.35mm Schmeisser pistol and finally headed to Berlin. Upon arriving in Berlin, Bavaud discovered that Hitler was in Berchtesgaden and traveled there. A police officer, Karl Deckert, overheard Bavaud saying that he would like to meet Hitler in person. Deckert indicated to Bavaud that it was possible to obtain a private audience with Hitler as long as he managed to get a letter of recommendation from some foreign leader with sufficient influence. The policeman advised him to travel to Munich for the anniversary of the putsch, where Hitler attended every year. Bavaud bought a ticket for the celebration, pretending to be a Swiss journalist, with the intention of shooting Hitler during the parade commemorating the coup. However, Bavaud abandoned his assassination attempt upon seeing that Hitler had moved to the other side of the street, instead of down the center as he had anticipated. This placed him in a position out of reach. When he realized that his plan had failed, he tried to return to Paris by train. At the station, he was arrested by the police and interrogated by the Gestapo, ultimately declaring himself guilty. After being tried by the German People's Court, Volksgerichtshof, he was sentenced to death in December 1938. Sadly, he was executed in 1941 in Plötzensee prison by guillotine. The General's Plot, the Zossen Conspiracy, 1938. In the same year, within the German army itself, the desire to stop Hitler arose. A group of high-ranking officers planned to arrest him or even eliminate him if he dared to order the invasion of Czechoslovakia. However, the European powers signed the Munich Agreement, which gave Hitler what he wanted without war. The plot disintegrated, but it laid the groundwork for future attempts. Georg Elser, the carpenter who shook Munich, 1939. A year later in 1939, a humble carpenter named Georg Elser devised a bold plan. He planted a bomb in the Burgerbräukeler brewery in Munich, where Hitler gave annual speeches. But incredibly, Hitler left the place 13 minutes before the explosion. The bomb killed 8 people and injured dozens, but the Nazi leader escaped once again. Operation Flash, the bomb on the plane, 1943. In 1943, an officer named Henning von Treschow devised an ingenious plan to place a bomb inside a box of brandy and send it on Hitler's plane. The plan was for it to explode during the flight, but it failed for an incredible reason. The cold in the plane's hold froze the mechanism. The resistance within the army did not give up and continued looking for ways to eliminate him. Rudolf von Gersdorf, the suicide mission, 1943. That same year, another attempt brings us to Rudolf von Gersdorf, an army officer who planned to blow himself up along with Hitler at an exhibition of captured weapons in Berlin. Von Gersdorf activated the bomb in his pocket, but Hitler moved through the exhibition so quickly that the explosive devices had not detonated yet when the tyrant was already far beyond their lethal range. Without any chance for a second attempt, von Gersdorff had the presence of mind to quickly leave the building, head to a public restroom, and deactivate the devices at the last second before they exploded. This desperate act of bravery shows us how far the conspirators were willing to go. Axel von dem Busche and Ewald Heinrich von Kleist-Schmenzen. Hitler was never a fashion victim. In November of that same year, von dem Busche, influenced by von Stauffenberg, decided to carry out another suicide bombing to kill Hitler. At that time, Hitler was going to inspect the army's new winter uniforms at his headquarters, Wolfschanze. La Guarida del Lobo. Von dem Busche, over 2 meters tall, with blonde hair and blue eyes, planned to present the uniforms with a personal mine equipped with a hand grenade detonator, hidden in the pocket of his trousers. He wanted to detonate the bomb while hugging Hitler, killing them both. The plan failed when, on November 16, 1943, an Allied air raid destroyed the train with the new uniforms, just the day before the assassination. Von dem Busche offered to repeat the attempt in February 1944, when the new uniforms would be available. However, before that date, von dem Busche was severely wounded in combat in Russia, losing a leg, which left him unable to carry out his plan. On February 11, 1944, another young officer, Ewald Heinrich von Kleist-Schmenzen, inspired by von dem Busche and encouraged by Klaus von Stauffenberg, attempted to assassinate Hitler in the same manner. He planned to carry a bomb in his clothing during a presentation that Hitler was going to attend. However, Hitler repeatedly canceled and postponed the event, which frustrated von Kleist's plan. The most notable thing about these attempts is that none of them came to light during the subsequent investigations. The officers involved were not betrayed, and von dem Busche survived the war, being one of the few military conspirators who managed to live to tell his story. Operation Foxley, the sniper who never fired. In 1944, while the Allies advanced in Europe after D-Day, the British Special Operations Executive, SOE, devised a bold plan to assassinate Adolf Hitler at his residence in Berghof in the Bavarian Alps. Hitler, increasingly isolated and surrounded by security measures, remained the center of the Nazi regime. The SOE considered that eliminating him could accelerate the collapse of Germany. The plan involved infiltrating a two-man team, a sniper and an observer. It had been identified that Hitler had a predictable morning routine. He had breakfast late and then took a walk in the gardens of his residence, where he would usually stop at a fixed point to contemplate the landscape. The sniper would use a high-precision rifle with a telescopic sight, probably a modified Mauser Kar 98K, suitable for long-distance shots. It was planned to shoot him from the nearby mountains, where the team could stay out of the visual range of Hitler's security. To carry out the plan, the team had to infiltrate disguised as German soldiers or use routes controlled by the local resistance. After completing the mission, they had predefined escape routes to ensure their safety. However, the plan was discarded for several reasons. The British considered that Hitler was making disastrous military decisions. If he died, he could be replaced by a more competent leader, like Heinrich Himmler, which could have prolonged the war. Hitler's death could trigger brutal reprisals against civilians and resistance movements in occupied Europe. The strategists concluded that the assassination of Hitler was not necessary to secure the Allied victory, as the Nazi regime was in full collapse. Although it was never carried out, Operation Foxley remains a fascinating example of how the Allies evaluated different ways to eliminate one of the most closely monitored leaders in history. Eberhard von Breitenbuch, A Gun in the Berghof, 1944. In 1944, Lieutenant Eberhard von Breitenbuch, personal assistant to Field Marshal Ernst Busch, planned to assassinate Hitler in a direct manner. His plan was to carry a concealed pistol and shoot him during a meeting at the Berghof. However, at the last moment, the Führer's security guards ordered that personal aides could not enter the conference room. This left their mission with no possibility of being carried out. The failure of this attempt underscores once again how the strict security measures around Hitler frustrated even the simplest and most straightforward plans. Albert Speer, poisoning plan in the bunker, 1945. In 1945, as Germany collapsed under the pressure of the Allied armies, Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister and one of his closest collaborators, considered assassinating the dictator. Speer planned to introduce poisonous gas into the ventilation system of the bunker, where Hitler was taking refuge in Berlin. However, upon inspecting the system, he realized it was too well sealed and protected, making it impossible to execute the plan. Finally, Speer decided not to go ahead with his idea. Years later, he confessed this failed attempt in his memoirs. Over the years, Hitler was the target of dozens of assassination attempts. This text highlights only some of the most notable attempts, showcasing the bravery and determination of those who were willing to sacrifice themselves to stop him. The fact that Hitler survived these attempts is attributed by some to luck, while others consider it a reflection of his elaborate security system. Curiously, Hitler himself came to believe that he was chosen for a higher purpose, which reinforced his conviction of invulnerability. What is clear is that many people, from ordinary citizens to high-ranking military officials, risked everything for the hope of a world free from his tyranny. These acts of resistance remind us of the importance of fighting against the abuse of power, even when the odds seem impossible.